In August 1971, 9 young men were dragged out of their homes in Palo Alto, California, handcuffed, and driven away in police cruisers. They had committed no crimes. Instead, they were participants in a psychology experiment taking place in the basement of Stanford University. Within just 36 hours, one prisoner suffered a hysterical emotional breakdown. By day 6, the situation had deteriorated so badly into sadism and trauma that the 2-week study had to be shut down entirely. For half a century, the Stanford Prison Experiment was presented to the world as absolute proof of a terrifying psychological truth, that given power and a uniform, any ordinary human being will effortlessly turn into a tyrant. But what if the famous story we were all taught in textbooks is entirely wrong? What if the real revelation of Stanford isn't about how easily good people turn evil, but about how easily the public can be deceived by junk science? To understand how this experiment captured the global imagination, we have to look back at the world in 1971. The United States was deeply fractured by the Vietnam War, anti-war protests, and widespread police brutality. Psychologists were desperate to understand why human beings commit atrocities, a debate reignited years earlier by Stanley Milgram's famous obedience experiments. Enter Philip Zimbardo, a charismatic 38-year-old social psychologist at Stanford University. Funded by the United States Office of Naval Research, Zimbardo wanted to investigate the psychological causes of conflict between prison guards and prisoners. He placed an ad in the Palo Alto Times calling for male college students to participate in a psychological study of prison life for $15 a day, equivalent to over $100 today. Out of 75 applicants, Zimbardo and his team selected 24 young men who were assessed as psychologically healthy, middle class, and emotionally stable. They randomly assigned 12 to be guards and 12 to be prisoners. In the basement of Jordan Hall, Stanford's psychology building, Zimbardo constructed a mock prison complete with small, windowless cells, a dark closet for solitary confinement, and a hallway designated as the prison yard. The guards were given khaki uniforms, reflective sunglasses, and wooden nightsticks. The prisoners were given thin muslin smocks stamped with ID numbers, no underwear, chains around their ankles, and stocking caps to simulate shaved heads. The stage was set for what was supposed to be a 14-day simulation. The simulation began on Sunday, August 15, 1971, when real Palo Alto police officers conducted surprise arrests, taking the designated prisoners into custody with sirens blaring. Upon arrival at the mock prison, the prisoners were stripped, deloused, and assigned their numbers. On the first day, nothing much happened. The environment felt artificial, and the guards were hesitant. But on the morning of August 16, the second day, the prisoners staged a rebellion. They barricaded their cell doors with beds and ripped off their number patches, mocking the guards. Zimbardo and his research team watched as the guards cracked down with extreme prejudice. Guards used fire extinguishers to shoot cold carbon dioxide into the cells, stripped the prisoners naked, removed the beds, and placed the ringleaders into solitary confinement. To divide the prisoners, the guards created a privileged cell, offering special meals to those who refrained from rebelling. One guard in particular, an undergraduate named Dave Eshelman, earned the nickname John Wayne for his ruthless, theatrical cruelty, adopting a thick southern drawl and forcing prisoners into humiliating physical labor. By Monday night, a 22-year-old prisoner named Douglas Corpy, designated as prisoner 8612, began exhibiting severe psychological distress. Corpy screamed, cursed, and fell into uncontrollable fits of rage and tears, forcing Zimbardo to release him after just 36 hours. Over the next few days, the abuse escalated dramatically. Guards forced prisoners to clean toilet bowls with their bare hands, subjected them to sleep deprivation, and made them perform sexually explicit acts during late-night counts when they believed Zimbardo wasn't watching. In reality, Zimbardo was acting as the prison superintendent, deeply immersed in the illusion himself. The experiment finally unraveled on Friday, August 20th, when Christina Maslach, a recent psychology PhD graduate and Zimbardo's girlfriend at the time, visited the basement to conduct interviews. She was horrified by the dehumanizing conditions and confronted Zimbardo, insisting that what he was doing was morally wrong. Realizing he had lost his scientific objectivity, Zimbardo terminated the experiment the next morning, 6 days into a planned 2-week run. For decades, the Stanford Prison Experiment was treated as gospel. Zimbardo argued that the study proved the power of situations over individual morality, popularizing the idea that bad barrels turn good apples bad. But in recent years, investigative journalists and researchers, led by French sociologist Thibault Le Texier and writer Ben Blum, dismantled the official narrative using uncovered audio recordings and archived files. The evidence revealed that the experiment wasn't a passive observation of natural behavior, but a heavily orchestrated piece of theatrical manipulation. Far from acting spontaneously, the guards were explicitly coached. Unreleased audio recordings show David Jaffe, a student acting as the prison warden, instructing guards on how to behave, telling them to be tough and suggesting specific tactics of psychological intimidation. In fact, Dave Eshelman later admitted that his infamous John Wayne persona was just an act, stating he was consciously trying to help the researchers get interesting data. Even more damning, Douglas Corpy, the prisoner whose terrifying mental breakdown triggered the early crisis, admitted years later that his emotional collapse was entirely faked. Corpy explained that he was simply pretending to be crazy so he could leave the study and study for his graduate GRE exams, which Zimbardo had initially refused to let him do. Furthermore, the selection process itself suffered from severe selection bias. A 2007 study reran the original newspaper ad and compared applicants who responded to an ad mentioning a prison study against those who responded to a neutral study ad. The applicants attracted to the prison study scored significantly higher in traits like aggressiveness, authoritarianism, and narcissism, while scoring lower in empathy. What does the Stanford Prison Experiment really reveal about human nature? The popular myth claims that ordinary people automatically transform into monsters when given power over others. But the true evidence tells a far more nuanced and sobering story. Stanford wasn't a study on human nature, it was a demonstration of authority and demand characteristics. It proved that when people in power recruit individuals with specific aggressive predispositions, explicitly instruct them to be cruel, sanction their abuse, and tell them that cruelty serves a higher noble purpose, those individuals will comply. Cruelty doesn't just spontaneously erupt out of nowhere. It requires leadership, permission, and systemic encouragement. The true horror of the Stanford Prison Experiment isn't that evil is latent in all of us waiting to break free. It is that authority figures can actively craft environments that coax, train, and legitimize evil behavior in others, and that academic institutions, the media, and the public were all too willing to buy into a dramatic, flawed narrative for over 40 years without looking at the facts. The real lesson of Stanford is to question the stories we are told, especially when they seem too perfect. What do you think about the revelation behind this famous study? Did you learn about it in school? Let me know in the comments below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's biggest mysteries and myths.